Hi everyone, it's Natalie and welcome back to my channel. Today is a good day. Today I'm reviewing Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. Let's see if I can maintain my composure while I review this book, because I had feelings, a lot of them. Very good ones, not gonna lie, very good ones, but it was a lot. So let's get started. Mexican Gothic is a horror novel that follows our main character Noemi after she has received a letter from her cousin, which is very suspicious. Her cousin has recently married a man and moved into his estate, and in her letter she writes that the house is telling her things, that she sees things, hears things, and doesn't understand what's happening. So Noemi and her father decide that Noemi should go to the house and check out what's going on. Once there, Noemi starts feeling the same influence that her cousin is feeling, and she starts uncovering what's really happening in this house and what is wrong with all the people living inside of it. Let me preface this review by saying that I'm going to start with the least spoilery stuff. I know that when it comes to reviewing horror novels or mysteries or thrillers, it's very hard to stay away from spoilers. So I'm going to start with the lightest stuff, but honestly, inevitably, you're likely going to want to leave this review once I'm actually talking about the nitty-gritty of everything I loved about this book, which I know sucks for some of y'all, but at the same time, it's like spoilers are different for people. For some of the things I'm going to mention, I don't particularly feel like they're spoilery in and of themselves, but they might be for someone else, so do with that what you will. So I'm going to start with one of my all-time favorite things about this book, which is actually at the same time the least spoilery of them, and that is that the writing of this book was spectacular. The atmosphere was crafted perfectly, like it was literally perfection. The word choice was so carefully and purposefully done. It was just stunning. Completely and utterly stunning. I would highly encourage you all to pick this up as an audiobook. That's how I read it, because it just read perfectly. It's like the perfect spooky story to listen to. It just fits so perfectly into that book format because the vibes are there and they're perfectly come to life when you listen to this book. The other thing about the writing is the pacing. Some reviewers have found the beginning of the book to be a bit too slow, but honestly, I found it to be perfect. I thought that it steadily built tension, and it just crept up and up and up and up as the story progressed, and I was totally fine with that. I didn't need like this sudden start to really plunge me into the story. Honestly, I thought the slow build was perfect because it just kept slowly increasing this sense of dread and the horror, and the images just became worse and worse and worse very slowly, and I thought it was perfect, period. I thought the atmosphere and the pacing were perfect. The only time they were not perfect was close to the end of the novel. That's the only spot where I would have preferred more time for the resolution. It was a bit too sudden for my taste, but that's fine. Another thing which I thought was done excellently here is the connection between the real and the fantastical. Here, the horror in this book is grounded in reality. It's grounded in eugenics. It's grounded in this mushroom that apparently actually exists. I haven't looked for it myself, but apparently it actually does exist. And it's actually inspired by facts. Like, it's not factual what happens in this novel, but it is rooted very closely to reality. And that is the element which really adds horror to all of this. Like, when you combine those very real elements with the more fantastical elements, it just makes the perfect blend of horror and spookiness, and it was great. I'm just gonna keep saying it was great because it was. So yeah, thematically this delves into incest, it delves into colonialism, it delves into eugenics, it touches on sexual assault. It's very thematically heavy and rich, which is what I think makes this such a strong horror novel. It's not like I read horror that often. Let me also say that. I don't really read horror or mysteries or thrillers that often. It's not really my genre. It's not really what I pick up. So I can understand how more knowledgeable readers of this genre might not be super impressed by this book, might not be super into it. But one of the issues I tend to have with horror novels, with mysteries and thrillers, is that there's not enough depth to them, there's not enough to the characters, and this book delivered on both fronts. It gave me really serious topics and handled them beautifully, and then on top of that, it gave me characters that I could actually get invested in, that I could actually believe, that I actually felt like they mattered and that their actions were realistic and made sense. So speaking of the characters, let me start with the only character I can talk about which does not constitute spoilers. I'm going to talk about Noemi. Noemi is a fucking icon. I would give my life for Noemi. I want Noemi to be my wife. I would give everything for Noemi. I thought she was such an excellent main character. She has this kind of like superfluous personality at first, but it's never really the same way it is in other kinds of novels that try to use similar characters to her. Like, she's very much clearly a socialite. She's into flirting and she likes being in gatherings and she's very aware of her beauty and all of these things. But I think the way that the author crafted her into the story, described her in this story, had her behave, made her far more appealing of a character. It never felt like the author was only trying to cover the surface level of her. She was clearly well-defined. And one of the things that made her well-defined was as well that she had a very strong personality. She was very much into getting her way in a way that was convincing and, again, appealing. She was just so appealing. Again, would give my life for her in a second. Now, the second character I'm going to talk about, y'all are gonna have to leave because it's a character that arguably my feelings make the character spoilery, or basically make the trajectory and the character arc of the character spoilery. So stay with caution. If you don't really care because I'm just talking about the character, stay. But honestly, the rest of this review is gonna be relatively spoiler heavy. So the character I want to talk about is my soft boy, Francis. Now listen. I did not come into this book full of a family who is into incest and eugenics, expecting to like one of those family members, but Francis won me. And okay, the book actually presents him as wholesome. Like, it actually presents him as being pretty different from the rest of his family. So, in reality, if Francis were a real person, would I really think he's entirely redeemable? Not quite. Like, he would be redeemable in the sense that, okay, I know he can make progress and I know he can unlearn things. But when you grow up with parents who are into eugenics and incest, that shit's kind of hard to unlearn. Pretty hard. Pretty difficult. So in reality, it's sketch. He's sketch. But since my man is fictional, I would also die for him. He was just so precious. His interactions with Noemi were precious. The relationship between them is so sweet and so soft. And I loved it so much. They made me feel so warm and soft inside. Now, technically, there is a romance between Noemi and Francis. And actually, that's one of my favorite things about this book. That's actually one of the things that I thoroughly enjoyed about this book, because that was just what I was in the mood for. I was like, I want to be spooked, but at the same time, I want to be romanced. And this book gave me both of those things. So I have to say thank you. I have to say thank you because it honestly revealed to me exactly the kind of horror that I want. Like, I want something atmospheric. I want something with well-developed characters. I want something that's very purposefully exploring themes. And I want something that has a little bit of romance. I'm like, yes, sprinkle a little of romance in there. I'm going to enjoy that. So, although I understand that their relationship is not the healthiest, I also think it was cute. Speaking now of Francis's family, all those people were pieces of shit. I hated them. And I love that I hated them because that's what I want. I want to be invested. You give me characters, you give me antagonists. I want to hate them with the entirety of my heart. I'm like, yes, make me want them to die. I'm like, either you make me want to support the villain or you make me want to support the hero. But if you don't make me support either of them, I'm not gonna give a shit and then it's a problem. But here, it gave me both. That's beautiful. It gave me both. I completely hated the antagonists and I loved our hero, and it was perfection. It was beautiful, it was incredible, I was obsessed. Like literally, I spent half of this novel wishing that Noemi would go off on this family because they were creepy as hell, they were disturbing as hell, the things they said were rude as hell, they were disgusting. Ugh, disgusting. Disgusting. No, we don't like them. Not even a little bit, not even a tiny speck. They're gross. So finally, at the end of the day, the plot of this novel isn't the most surprising. I'm going to give that to people who didn't enjoy this book. This isn't the most surprising plot out there. I don't think it is. I thought some of it not necessarily was predictable, but it made sense. I didn't need the author to like reinvent the wheel. I didn't need her to go completely beyond the premises and what is known of the Gothic genre. Like, I really did not need that. She didn't really do that. She used a lot of staples of Gothic horror and just Gothic novels. So I was fine with that. I was fine with that, honestly, because I think she still brought something unique with the themes and with the characters. The other thing that I know people didn't particularly enjoy about this book, or would have preferred not to have it, is the sexual assault scenes. This book, one of the major sources of horror is the sexual assault scenes. And although I would not say they are the most graphic in the sense of terror, they're terrifying because they're blending consent with non-consent. Like, as a smart reader, you read the scene and you know there's not consent there. You know there isn't. But you have our main character who is confused about the consent in the moment, who is kind of like, do I want this? I feel like I want this, but I don't know if I actually do. What's going on? So you have that added layer to those scenes, which might make them very, very difficult for some readers to read. So obviously trigger warnings there. So yeah, I understand why some people think that those scenes shouldn't have been there, but I actually felt like it wasn't gratuitous and it wasn't handled in a way that makes it feel cheap. So that's why personally I was not affected by the fact that those scenes were there. And obviously because it's not a trigger for me. So do with that what you will. So as y'all can see, clearly I had a lot of feelings reading this. I'm not sure if I already mentioned that I gave it 5 stars. I gave it 5 stars. I loved it with so much of my heart and my soul and my being. Even though I can see the parts where I might have docked a few stars or maybe gave it a 4.5 or 4 stars, ultimately the experience this book gave me was that of a 5-star book. At the end of the day, I would highly, highly encourage you to pick up this book. Please give it a try and form your own opinion on it, because I just want to see everyone reading this book. I just want that. I need it. I need it with all of me. Anyway, that's it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you've read Mexican Gothic, please let me know down in the comments below what you thought of it. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Were you kind of in the middle? Are you a stan like me? Please, I want to know. Because again, I'm open to criticisms of my faves. I'm totally open to them. I'm more likely to say you're valid than you're not, because I do see flaws. I do see flaws, but I want to know what you all think. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you would like to follow me on any of my social media, I will have the links to that down below in the description. But for now, see you next time.